Minakami Village is full of numerous horrifying, creepy, and often disturbing ghosts, but what happened to them? Why are they haunting the particular areas they're in, and what were they like in life? This week, let's find out. Naturally, there are spoilers for all aspects of all three versions of Fatal Frame 2 Crimson Butterfly here. Kurosawa Sae, the main big boss of the game. The reason we're all here to begin with. Serving as a sort of second chance at carrying out the Crimson Sacrifice ritual after the Tachibana twins failed, Sae was unfortunately made to carry it out by herself when her attempt to flee with her twin, Yae, failed, and Sae alone was brought back. Of course, her ritual also failed, and shortly after her body was tossed into the abyss, she returned with a vengeance, bringing the Kusabi with her and wreaking havoc on the poor residents of Minakami. The repentance struck and darkness washed over the village, trapping it in an endless night with Sae, warped by the darkness, constantly cackling and ensuring anyone who stumbled upon their village thereafter also painfully died. And when the Amakura twins found themselves in the village in the late 1980s, she possessed Mayu and tried to get Mio to carry out the ritual once more, so she could finally become one with her sister. Which they did, and after this ritual was carried out, Sae was finally able to move on, and the darkness covering Minakami was lifted. Kusabi, the man, the myth, the legend himself. In life, he was Makabe Seijiro, a folklorist with a particular interest in hellgates. This brought him to Minakami when his apprentice, Munakata Ryozo, informed him that a friend from Minakami requested his help and wanted him to visit. Seeing the opportunity as too good to pass up, Makabe agreed to go there with him. Unfortunately, Makabe's curiosity was his downfall. Even after learning that the villagers planned to kill both him and Munakata so they could be sacrificed to the gate to hell beneath the village, he refused to leave. In fact, he ensured that Munakata got away, but chose to stay himself. He wanted to see this gate to hell that much. He was horribly tortured beforehand, and then thrown in while just barely clinging to life. He became a successful sacrifice. But when Sae's ritual failed, his angry spirit returned with her, and, essentially working as her servant, Sae and the Kusabi swept through the village, killing anyone and everyone. He brutalized them, like he had been brutalized, wailing in pain and anguish the entire time. This guy is so powerful that not even the camera obscura has any effect on him. It's not until the safety inside is removed that it's able to do any damage to him, and, in the canon end, he is the final ghost Mio battles and defeats before moving down to the hellish abyss to carry out the ritual. Kurosawa Ryokan. The Aura farmer himself was perhaps one of the most unfortunate villagers in life, despite his position of power within the Kurosawa family, the family who ruled over the village. He took part in the Crimson Sacrifice ritual when he was younger, killing his own brother. Now remaining, this would normally see him somewhat ostracized by the other villagers, but because he was the head of their main family, he was able to avoid this lonely fate. But when his later wife gave birth to twins, she despaired, knowing that they would potentially have to go through with the ritual as well. As such, she threw herself into the abyss, and Ryokan had to raise the girls alone. And then, the day their mother feared came. The girls were the only twins left to take part in the ritual after the Tachibana twins failed. Ryokan did his best to save the village, even using Makabe in the cutting ritual to serve as a temporary sacrifice for the abyss. But in the end, it was for naught. Sae's ritual failed. Darkness consumed the village, and Ryokan suffered personally at the hands of the Kusabi. As a ghost, he resembles a monk who has undergone the process of self-mummification, and he's able to summon his priests to fight for him. Kiryu twins. Akane and Azami took part in the Crimson Sacrifice ritual long before the Tachibana and Kurosawa twins. They are perhaps the oldest ghosts we run into in the village. Not in terms of their actual age when they died, but rather how long they've been around in Minakami. The Kiryu twins ritual was successful, but because they were so young, Akane struggled to understand and process what she had done. She missed her sister so much that her father, Yoshitatsu, made a doll for her that looked just like her. But, unfortunately, a stray spirit from hell took up residence in the doll, and Akane came to believe it was actually her sister. Once Yoshitatsu realized this and tried to get rid of it, the doll forced Akane to kill her own father. Azami, now a crimson butterfly, tried to help her sister, but unfortunately, she wasn't able to get through to her. Although the game doesn't tell us how, Akane then also died shortly after her father, likely as punishment for killing him. Kiryu Yoshitatsu. Akane and Azami's father, Yoshitatsu, was a skilled doll maker. In fact, the doll he made to cheer up his daughter looked so realistic that it was difficult to tell it wasn't actually her unless you got up close. But in trying to cheer up his depressed daughter, he actually created a much larger problem. A problem that would get him killed. A spirit from hell took up residence in the doll, and when it realized that Yoshitatsu wished to dispose of it, it decided to get rid of him first. Twisting Akane's ear, the doll had her kill her own father, and for whatever reason, he didn't resist. As a ghost, he too continues to haunt the Kiryu house, and, in battle, he uses his own dolls to attack. Broken Neck Woman. She's perhaps one of the most famous ghosts from the game, recognizable at a single glance. With her head lolling to the side and her neck at a terribly unnatural angle, it's no surprise where her name comes from. It's unclear who she was in life, but she appears to be connected to the Tsuchihara family. When the repentance struck and darkness swallowed the village, the Broken Neck Woman was on the Heaven Bridge between the twin houses. Rather than letting it take her, she decided to end things on her own terms and jumped. As a ghost, she apparently still doesn't understand exactly what happened to her. She relives her final painful moments over and over, and wanders around the village seemingly in a daze, seeking help for her pain, while also blindly attacking anyone who comes near. Fallen Woman. Similarly, the Fallen Woman was nearby inside the Kiryu house when darkness swept the village. Like the Broken Neck Woman, she too decided that she'd rather end things on her own terms and jumped from the top of the staircase in the clock hall of the house. This was preferable to finding out what the darkness had in store for her. In life, the Fallen Woman was Tsuchihara Aoi, meaning she was also likely related to the Broken Neck Woman. And, in death, she also continually falls, reliving her painful death over and over. Because of the way she died, this ghost crawls around on her back like a reverse crab or spider, and she likes to jump at you like one as well. Woman in the Box. This particular ghost's history is a little confusing, as it seems to slightly change from game to game. Originally, she could be found in a box in the Osaka house, suggesting she was at least close to that family, if not directly from it. However, she can also be found in the well beneath the Kurosawa house. And in the remake, she can be found in the Minakami settlement area, where she now guards one of the twin Jizo keys, rather than the Osaka crest she used to guard. Originally, it was also said that she died while hiding in a box with her baby. However, by the time of the remake, her baby no longer seems to exist, and we're told that she merely hid to escape the darkness, but was then trapped in the box and couldn't get back out. Tachibana Chitose. The younger sister of the Tachibana twins, Chitose was born with poor eyesight. She was also a terribly shy girl, and being so young, she never really understood why her brother Mutsuki disappeared one day and never came back. Before he died, Itsuki, her remaining brother, gave Chitose a bell. Because of her poor eyesight, she could ring this and get his attention, and thus help, should she need it. When the repentance struck, Chitose was terrified and hid in a closet in her house. She waited for her brother to save her, but he never came. He was already dead. Too afraid to leave because of all the ghosts now roaming the village and the house itself, Chitose ended up dying in the closet and joining them. As a ghost, she's able to, in a way, make Mio see the world how she saw it, as mostly darkness. Although she is technically an antagonistic ghost, this is mostly because she's scared and doesn't know what's going on around her. She just wants her brothers back. Tachibana Itsuki. We first run into Tachibana Itsuki early in the game, locked in a storehouse, and he immediately mistakes Mio for Yae. His ritual with his brother failed because they loved each other too much, and after the ritual, his hair turned white. Before Mutsuki died, the boys made a promise to help the Kurosawa girls escape the village so they wouldn't have to undergo the ritual should they fail. Itsuki did his best to help the girls escape, but Sae was eventually recaptured. Itsuki was also imprisoned, but he was able to get a letter to his friend, Munakata Ryozo, beforehand, seeking his help. Itsuki then took his life in the storehouse before Sae's failed ritual, and, interestingly, he appears to be the one ghost not truly affected by the darkness. Even in death, he continues trying to help Yae, aka Mio, so she can hopefully escape the village. Sunken Woman. The sunken or drowned woman is one of the few ghosts not originally from Minakami. Like the Amakura twins, she got lost in Minakami Forest one day, and then, eventually she found herself in Minakami Village. The remake tells us she specifically went there to end matters, but now she wants nothing more than to escape this terrifying village. At some point, she hears a voice calling to her from the water, and thinking that the water must lead out of the village, she decides to, basically, entrust herself to it. But upon entering the water, numerous arms capture her and she drowns, turning her into a watery spirit like the rest of them. Sudo Miyako. Yet another rare ghost not originally from Minakami. Miyako found herself in Minakami after setting out to find her boyfriend, Masumi. He was a geological surveyor working on the Minakami Dam who went missing in the forest one day. When the search for him was eventually called off, Miyako decided to find him herself. And find him she did. After also becoming stuck in Minakami Village, she was eventually reunited with her love in the Osaka house. But by this point she was injured, so she stayed there while Masumi continued searching for a way out. Unfortunately, he ran into the Kusabi during his search and died. When he returned to Miyako, he was now also a ghost, and, in his ghostly confusion, he strangled her. After death, Miyako continues to haunt the Osaka house, still looking for her lost love. Makimura Masumi. While surveying Minakami Forest for the upcoming dam project, Masumi got lost and found himself in Minakami Village. Authorities attempted to search for him but called it off after only 10 days. He was hardly the first person to go missing in the forest, after all. But his girlfriend, unhappy with this, set out to find him herself. Masami spent his time in Minakami trying to find a way back out. He left behind numerous detailed notes, and during his time there he was able to uncover quite a bit of information about the village. He was eventually reunited with Miyako, but had to leave her behind during his excursions around the village because of her injury. Throughout all of this, he held onto a ring that he planned to give Miyako at the right moment that had 2 M's engraved on it, one for each of their names. However, Masami unfortunately ran into the Kusabi in the Kurosawa house and was killed. Now a ghost, he was still unable to let go of his feelings for Miyako and was consumed with desire to find her, which he did in the Osaka house. But now that he was dead, confused, and consumed with raging feelings, he strangled his beloved to death. After that, he continued wandering the village as a lost spirit, trying to find his beloved Miyako. Veiled Priests. These guys each represented the main families in Minakami, and served the ceremony master, or the head of the Kurosawa family. Each of these priests kept a pinwheel crest that, when combined, could be used to access a secret passage out of the village. In daily life, these priests assisted the ceremony master with all of the village's rituals. They helped prepare mourners and kusabis. They directly took part in the cutting ritual, and offered guidance and assistance during the Crimson Sacrifice ritual. They also somewhat served as watchmen in the village, at least when it came to matters concerning the Abyss. No one should be freely coming or going from there, nor should they be accessing the secret exit in the Kureha Shrine. These priests wore veils over their faces so they didn't look upon the Abyss, a forbidden act, and also covered their faces in protective characters, much like Hoichi did in the story of Hoichi the Earless. These priests were also amongst the first to die when the repentance struck, as they were there by the Abyss when Sae and the Kusabi rose, one of them even removing his veil to view the horrors firsthand. Mourners. You can think of these guys as kind of like the worker ants of the village. If those worker ants were never allowed to see the light of day, or anything else really, ever again. They were guardians of the Abyss, and in fact, the only people in the village allowed near it. Because viewing the Abyss was forbidden, their eyes were first sewn shut so that they might never accidentally see it. Obviously, this isn't a pleasant job, so, in general, the village forcibly turned criminals and undesirables into mourners, alongside anyone who may have broken the taboo of looking upon the Abyss. They also took part in the Crimson Sacrifice ritual directly. It was the mourners who threw the body of the deceased twin into the Abyss. These mourners would then have to spend the rest of their lives underground. The remake also expands their role a little by having them serve as gravekeepers in Minakami Cemetery as well. Limbo Man and Woman. You can find these unfortunate folks in the Kurosawa house. They were attacked by the Kusabi when he returned, and unfortunately for them, he kind of carried out a little cutting ritual of his own. These ghosts are covered in slashes and deep cuts, and in some cases are even missing limbs. Just like the Kusabi's own arm was torn off during his torture. Needless to say, they didn't have pleasant deaths. Man and Woman in the Dark. These ghosts serve as the sort of generic ghosts of the game. They're just your basic villagers who died to the darkness, and then were eventually consumed by it. They're pretty much hollow shells who don't really know who they are anymore and just seem to roam the village looking for help, sort of like lost zombies. Sickle Bearer. This guy was one of the villagers sent to find Yaya and Saya when they escaped the village. He carries a sickle because, well, it's a common tool you'll find in a village of this nature. And apparently he's a bit of a violent dude, as it was fully his intention to use it to stop them from escaping. Yikes. Seeker. The Seeker, meanwhile, carries a torch, being the light bearer for the party of villagers looking for the lost twins. And in death, he continues looking for the twins with his search party, lighting the way through the darkness with his torch. Pole bearer. The final search party member, the pole bearer, unsurprisingly carries around a large pole that was also intended to subdue the twins should they find them. Originally, this ghost was going to be a big burly guy who would manhandle you, but he was changed because they wanted a ghost who could attack from a longer distance. Kids playing tag. And finally, the kids playing tag. You can find these little shits basically all over the village, depending on which version of the game you're playing. These kids were playing when the repentance struck, and in death, they continue playing. The remake tells us they're responsible for all the twin dolls you can find hiding around the village, and that their game of tag is a somewhat childish version of the Crimson Sacrifice ritual. If you get caught, you get sacrificed and turned into a butterfly. This game was apparently taught to them by Kiryu Akane's spirit. But what did you guys think of this one? Which was your favourite or least favourite ghost? And are there any other bits of Fatal Frame lore you'd like to see me cover? Let me know in the comments below, and I'll see you again next time.